When the summer 2017 anime season started, Made in Abyss was quick to gather murmurs in the community. There were a few people watching the show, but out of those few people, most of them were quickly beginning to tell others to watch it, some even going as far to say, right out of the gate,
that this might be the contender for anime of the season.
As the season has gone on, however, the buzz has somewhat calmed down. Many opinions have changed to be more reserved or less certain, but what has remained, however, is that the 3 starting episodes or so grabbed to the viewer hook, line, and sinker. The question then is, where did this series manage to come out on top in grabbing the anime community's attention where few others could compare? Something mentioned not only in my previous videos, but also in the community at large, is a sense of disillusionment from modern, decently seasoned anime viewers, with the disillusionment, of course, going up the more anime that they've seen. A large reason we are seeing this happen is because in the last few years there has been a heavily increasing amount to the load of anime that we have accessible to us. Whether it be the never-ending haul of high school rom-coms or the recently emerging genre known as isekai, more and more shows are taking the option that if a show worked well in the past, then swapping out characters and trying to do it again without passion or without work just works as well. Most of the time this is wrong, obviously, as the product doesn't seem to have nearly as much work put in, nearly as much attention or love, and most anime viewers are starting to slowly get keen to these sort of things. The question then is, how do you market a show to a previously existing consumer base? One way is by appealing unique in design while not straying too far left field in terms of art direction. Although there are cases of a left field design being actually good and benefiting the work as well, so there are exceptions. Not letting your designs become stale as a result of templates is also key. Studios which have similar design that all have small stylistic variances in the way that their characters are drawn from show to show work really well in terms of marketing and in terms of keeping things fresh. KyoAni is a great example of such. Most fairly familiar anime fans can easily pick out one frame from K-On! From one frame in Hibike without too much stress, and can easily pick the difference between something like Harui and Lucky Star. This can also be seen in directing of many shows from Studio Shaft, at least the ones with Akiyuki Shinbo at the helm, popular examples of which being the Monogatari series and Madoka Magica. Another big contributing factor to hooking a new person to a new series is by creating a highly relatable characters, presenting the premise in a way that they can, in a certain level, feel some sort of hope or expectation for where the show will going throughout its run, and cementing that with the future episodes. Bad examples of characters in shows obviously aren't that hard to find, looking at most modern light novel adaptations. But although most of them are fairly bland one-note characters that don't stand out, a few recent exceptions could be pointed to be No Game No Life and Shimonetta. Shimonetta, for one, displays their premise, a boring world where the idea of dirty jokes don't exist, which practically breeds creative possibility in a viewer's mind just with the title. It's a show that cultivates well with the over-the-top styles and extreme absurd situations, even just in the first episode. So having a broad yet unique appeal that draws in the pre-existing consumer base without seeming pandering, and having characters that are well-written, well-established on the first episode, which is also introducing an interesting narrative hook or premise to entice the viewer's imagination on where to go and what to do. It's a lot to do. So how does Made in Abyss manage to hook in a viewer? Starting from the top, the design in Made in Abyss is made for success. Most people are partial to liking the works of Studio Ghibli and are familiar with the style. So when it's been 3 years since the last Studio Ghibli movie, and a seasonal anime pops out of nowhere with comparable quality and style, it hits that sweet spot of having a good art style that can easily connect, that is just left field enough to draw attention without disconnecting the audience. The characters, as far as kids are concerned, are very well written, which is driven home much more by the premise, which places them in a town that is very similar to the coal mining days in America, but has an entire society centered around it that breeds kids to then go in to mine, or in this case in the abyss, with the just accepted eventuality of death. Other than the beautiful art and detail that you find in the background and human characters, the monsters displayed within the first couple episodes are also awe-inspiring. The designs are dark and brooding, and the whole structure of events within the episode seem to point towards this great premise of the treasure-filled abyss. Unknown civilizations, monsters of great scale, and unique yet realistic abilities, for this world at least. It all seems very cohesive and well-grounded, while still not being grounded in the ground of many of its other contemporary anime from recent years. The main character, Riko, is an example of how to establish a strong character in the first episode. In all her scenes in the first episode, she's shown to be some form of reckless, motivated, optimistic, and while also being shown to have very childlike weakness and fear, she's established in vague enough terms for people to relate to, connect to, and like her, but in specific enough terms to then feel like a separate entity from ourselves. That is the sweet spot. To top it all off, with the idea of the Abyss being the premise that all other plot points are derived from, they do well to combine their art with the end cards that make the travel into the Abyss, marking a great example of the narrative hook being brought right at the end to remind you why you want to be coming back in the next episode. To put it short, Made in Abyss is a dreamlike show that sucks in the viewer with wonderful animation and art design and keeps them there with narrative tension, lovable characters, and by setting out a clear goal so you know what you're signing up for. It is a perfect example from the summer 2017 season of just how to hook a viewer.